Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to take an updated look at the DMR weapons in Battlefield 4 and figure out just which one of them is the best. Now, since my initial video for the best weapons in Battlefield 4, a lot has changed to the weapon balance, the dynamics, and frankly just the way guns shoot in Battlefield 4. So my previously best recommended weapon was the SKS, which is what I'm using right now. And what I like so much about the SKS is that it's a DMR for somebody who's not quite ready to go full long range with the DMRs yet. The SKS can handle itself in close quarters handedly. It's got a fast rate of fire, the fastest out of any of the DMRs at 333 rounds per minute, combined with a 43 max damage and a 34 min damage. So you can get a 3-shot body shot at pretty much any range unless the person's wearing body armor, and that'll really only affect you at extreme long ranges. Or you can get a 2-shot kill if you hit them once in the body or once in the head. And with the high rate of fire, you can see that I'm out damaging and killing a lot of people with full auto weapons in medium range combat. Now, the drawbacks of the SKS are its overall accuracy. It has the lowest standard accuracy of any of the DMRs out there, which means if you're going to slap a magnified optic on this thing and engage at longer ranges, you're not going to fare quite as well as you would with some of the other DMRs out there. It's not to say that it's a bad DMR or that it can't handle itself. In fact, it can handle itself in medium to medium long-ish range just fine. It's really when it comes down to that perfect accuracy at the extreme long ranges that you're not going to fare as well. But that's okay, because the SKS is really more of a spam fire battle rifle. I love the SKS a lot. It still probably is my favorite DMR in the game, but that's not to say that it's the best DMR in the game. It's entirely dependent on your playstyle, and if you don't like to spam fire quite so much and you want a little bit more range capability, like somewhere close to a bolt action rifle, then you're going to want to look elsewhere. Now let's take a look at the SVD-12. This is an all-around well-balanced DMR. It's got good accuracy, better than the SKS, a slightly slower rate of fire, an incredibly fast reload of 1.95 seconds. It handles like a battle rifle. You can use it in close quarters if you need to, and it stretches out to long range effectively. And you can see that I'm using an ACOG scope on here. With this rifle, I feel much more comfortable engaging the long range targets than I did with the SKS. And you'll notice that I was using a red dot sight with the SKS, as I was using it a bit more like a battle rifle, and this I'm kind of using like a hybrid in between. I need that accuracy for longer ranges, but it can also handle itself in close quarters when I need to. It does have a slightly reduced magazine capacity compared to the SKS of 15 shots instead, but it's got such a fast reload speed that it's really not that big of a deal, and I didn't find myself running the mag dry too frequently in situations where I really needed an extra 5 shots. The gun also does slightly more damage than the SKS. It does 45 max and 38 minimum instead of 43 max and 34 minimum. You might be wondering what's the difference there, because 34 is still going to 3-shot people just as 38 will 3-shot people. Well, at range, the 38 damage will 3-shot people even if they're using the defensive perk, so you have a much better chance of getting that 3-shot kill at range than you would with an SKS. So that really does extend the ranged effectiveness of this weapon. Aside from the overall accuracy buff, you're going to be able to compete with people with bolt action rifles. In fact, I love dueling against people with bolt action rifles using this weapon because you can take a shot, hit him in the body, that'll kind of throw off your opponent. Do a quick sidestep, chances are that your opponent's going to be thrown off from getting shot. They might have a little bit of suppression, they're going to take a shot, it will almost guaranteed miss you, and then you can follow up with another 1 or 2 more shots to down them. Without question, the SVD-12 is one of the most versatile DMRs in the game. It can be used for close quarter combat, it can be used for long range combat. It does everything really well. It doesn't do anything the best, but that's okay. If you really can't decide what kind of DMR user you are, start off with the SVD-12 and figure it out as you go. Now, if you would like a little bit more range, if you want the ultimate long-range DMR that can absolutely tear people up, I'm absolutely in love with the Mark 11 Mod 0. Now, despite the Mark 11 Mod 0 being so good at range, it's still a very versatile DMR. It can be used in close quarters if you need to, and you often find yourself getting stuck in those situations. But if you can position yourself at the medium to medium long range engagement distance, the Mark 11 Mod 0 is going to absolutely tear people up. If you put a 4x scope on there, aim for the head, you can drop people so freaking fast with this gun. It's got a 20-round magazine, a 1.85 second reload speed, so you can spam fire this thing if you want in close quarters. It does have that versatility. but it also has the best accuracy. It's an interesting combination of characteristics for this weapon, making it one of my favorites in the game. The one area where this weapon is a little bit weaker compared to other DMRs is its ability to spam fire accurately, which is only really an issue if you're trying to spam fire people at really long range. You can't really use it like the SKS where you're just spamming as fast as humanly possible and expecting to down targets at further ranges. In close quarters, it's not an issue at all because your accuracy reduction is not big enough to throw off your shots in CQB, but at further ranges, you can't shoot this gun at its ultimate rate of fire and expect to have precise follow-up shots. They won't be inaccurate, they just won't be perfectly accurate. It's not a big deal, and as soon as you learn the sort of rhythm of shooting this weapon, your shots are going to be pinpoint accurate, which is great if you're sort of working on perfecting your DMR skills and you're very good at aiming for those headshots. You can absolutely chain back-to-back headshots or a headshot and then a body shot, no problem. It also has an incredibly high muzzle velocity of 640 meters per second, making it the ideal weapon to try and hit moving targets at range, and you have the magazine to do so as well. Naturally, you're going to miss a bunch of your shots when people are running across the landscape. It's hard to predict the running animation sometimes, but because it has such a fast muzzle velocity and that large magazine, you're going to have no problem taking them down with successive shots. This is pretty much one of the best long-range weapons in the game that isn't a bolt-action rifle, and it's one of those things where it's like if you know that you want to play in the backfields or try and play from far away and absolutely decimate people, then this is the gun to go for. That being said, you see a lot of gameplay here with me being very aggressive with it. It is still a DMR, and you can still spam fire it at 260 rounds per minute, dropping people incredibly fast. There's just that thing about DMRs where it's like, yeah, they're great at range, but don't underestimate them in close quarters. Now, picking the right DMR for you is very much dependent on your specific playstyle. As much as I love running the Mark 11 Mod 0, and I still think it's one of the best DMRs, especially if you're going to play on a long range map, if I know I'm going to be playing aggressively as I am here, I probably don't want the Mark 11 Mod 0. I would fare much better with the SKS, as it's going to drop those people in CQB way better than the Mark 11 Mod 0. Even though I'm playing well with it here, I could be playing better with the SKS. So know your situation, know the map, know what playstyle you're going through, and then select your DMR. Now there's a couple more interesting DMRs out there, but the three that I've mentioned so far, the SVD, the SKS, and the Mark 11 Mod 0, I think are the three best DMRs in the game. SKS for close range, SVD 12 if you can't really decide if you want to go close range or long range, and the Mark 11 Mod 0 if you really want to focus on that longer range combat. Now there's some other interesting DMRs out there. The QBU 88 has very low recoil, it has the best hip fire out there, and it also has the fastest muzzle velocity. It's a whole myriad of stats that kind of don't work well together. Like, it's got some of the best stats, but they don't really combine well together. It's also got a rate of fire of 310, so it can dish out a good amount of damage, and it can hip fire kind of well and also hit moving targets at range really well, but it's not the most accurate. It's sort of a weird weapon, and it's got a reduced magazine capacity. You can absolutely wreck face with it if you know what you're doing, but in my opinion, it's not as versatile or as useful as some of the other ones out there. I know a lot of people also like the Scar H SV and the Ace 53 SV. The Ace 53 is interesting. It has a 25 round magazine, so reloading is not an issue for that weapon. My personal gripe with it is that I don't like the recoil. It pulls a little bit hard to the right, and that makes follow-up shots more difficult. Vertical recoil can be compensated for with practice. Side-to-side recoil is a bit trickier for me personally, and there just aren't enough benefits to really try and make the Ace 53 work. Now the Scar H SV is an interesting rifle. It's very good in pretty much all regards. It's not as accurate as the Mark 11 Mod 0, and the weapon ultimately seems like it's geared more towards long range, and I would rather have the accuracy of the Mark 11 Mod 0. The Scar H's only thing that it has over the Mark 11 Mod 0 is that its accuracy returns to normal a little bit faster, so it's slightly better at spam firing than the Mark 11 Mod 0, but again, I think you'd be better off just going with the Mark 11 Mod 0 if you want long range combat. Now, if you absolutely love using a DMR that I haven't yet mentioned here, and you're like, dude, how could you overlook this weapon, it's so good and I'm always so amazing with it. Well, that's probably true because the DMRs are so freaking similar in their performance. You can pretty much pick up any of them and just go to town. I mean, you're not going to have to change up your game style too much. The SKS is probably the most different of them all, but even so, switching between them all and doing well with them is not going to be that big of a difference overall. Again, the three weapons I mentioned, the SKS, SVD-12, and Mark 11 Mod 0, all kind of are the kings of their specific range groups, and the other weapons sort of fall short or have quirky characteristics that I find to be less useful. You can still do well with all of them, but if you really want to try and perfect your gameplay, I think you will ultimately do the best with one of those three guns. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.